Forging IT security experts. Secure Ninja.
Hello, it's Alicia Webb with SecureNinjaTV. I'm here at BlackHat USA in Las Vegas, and I'm going to speak with Hanni Fakhoury. He is a staff attorney for EFF, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Hanni, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great to speak with you. What exactly is EFF?
So we're a nonprofit digital civil liberties organization. We're based in San Francisco, and we've got a staff of about 40 people. And we bring together lawyers, activists, technologists, all working together to keep the internet free, robust, and open, free from interference by government, interference by companies that may be, threatening security researchers, trying to use, bogus patents in order to stifle innovation. And so with that whole staff, we all work together to, get involved in legal cases, to comment on proposed legislation, and just comment generally on growing trends in internet and technology, and just make sure that the public interest of a free, open, secure internet is achieved.
Excellent. Now, security research and the law, how do the two of those interact with each other?
Well, they really have a very interesting relationship with each other, and it's complicated. When we talk about security research, what I'm really talking about is computer technicians, programmers, hackers, for lack of a better word, who are doing their work, doing their job, trying to look out for viruses or attacks on their network systems, and they may come across like a vulnerability, a bug in a certain website or type of technology, and I think a lot of people's instinct when they come across these types of bugs or vulnerabilities, or they've noticed a problem in some sort of technology, is to do the good thing and have it fixed. And the law creates some interesting issues when it comes to that type of reporting. A lot of security research is not done in a laboratory with mice. It's done in the real world, where people are looking at actual active alive networks. They're looking at software that's being used. They're looking at data that's stored online. And because of that, it creates the potential for some legal risk if you do your research in a way where you may be in potential violation of the law. And separate and apart from the actual act of doing the research, you may also find yourself in some sort of legal hot water based on how you may be trying to report whatever vulnerability you find. Generally speaking, at EFF, we ask for, we promote what we call responsible disclosure. The idea being that when you do find something, you tell a company or whoever it is that has that vulnerability, you let them know ahead of time before you disclose it to the public, and give them an opportunity to fix the problem on their own before you release to the broader public, or show to the broader public, hey, there's a bug here, there's a problem here. And that way the company has a chance to fix it before any real harm is done to other users. Oftentimes that's not successful. Companies are lazy, they don't want to fix the problem, or they won't even respond to it. And when that happens, then researchers are put into an interesting kind of dilemma. Do they release the bug, show the world a vulnerability? Do they keep it for themselves and keep giving them a chance, but at the risk of putting a lot of innocent people's data at risk? What should a researcher do? Well, they can come to the EFF and we can help walk them through what some of their options are. We have represented and defended people who've decided, after nobody would listen to their report of a vulnerability, that we would help them present their talk without fear of being sued or served with a cease and desist,
right,
or criminal liability in some very rare instances. So all of those things are designed to help security researchers feel comfortable in turning over the information that they have, and which really is a public service.
How often do researchers end up in trouble simply because they don't realize that there's a set of steps they need to go through before they release the information about a bug, and then end up damaging themselves?
I think that happens a lot. And as good as researchers are at doing the actual computer science work and the actual really awesome technical work, they're not generally very good lawyers. And that oftentimes creates a lot of problems, because there's in the United States, the law is complicated, particularly when we're talking about wireless communications, public broadcast channels. These sorts of technological mechanisms are treated very complicated in the law, And what oftentimes happens, a person may think that one little particular aspect of what they're doing is fine, but not realizing that some other aspect of what they've done or what they plan to disclose to the public may end up getting them in trouble. So we always recommend that anytime a security researcher is doing something that they think may potentially get them into some legal trouble, that they contact a lawyer before they do the work, and especially before they report it to either a private company as part of a responsible disclosure process, or even to the public at a conference like BlackHat, for example. And that way they can have a lawyer look through the legal issues, spot problem areas, and have their presentations adjusted to protect themselves from legal liability. And oftentimes it's not even the lawsuit that's the real issue. Many companies will use a cease and desist, basically, that try to stop the researcher from presenting on that material.
Right.
And that really is a bad public service, but it could seriously harm a presenter's reputation if he decides to ignore the cease and desist letter, go ahead, then he could potentially find himself being sued. So, the best thing to do is to get legal help early in the process, and if lawyers are expensive, and EFF, we're happy to help you out pro bono if we can, and if we can't do it, we'll be happy to find somebody else who can.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine, since it's in line with technology, very much like technology, constantly being updated, that the law would be constantly changing, and it must be hard for researchers to keep in track.
Absolutely, and what's interesting about that is that both the law changes, but parts of the law don't change. So, for example, our wiretapping laws have been pretty much in place for the last, more than 20 years they've been on the books. And what the technology was in the 1980s when the law was put into place is very different than what the technology is today. And oftentimes it's hard for a researcher, and it's even hard for lawyers who do this type of work, to be able to put two and two together, to kind of apply the technology to the rather archaic legal terms. So while parts of the law change frequently, other parts of the law have stayed the same for a long time, and haven't, reflected the real technological reality of today. So it's always good to have a lawyer who has that background on these issues to help guide you through whatever it is you're researching.
So where does the law stand on ethical hacking? Does the law care whether or not you're a white hat or a black hat?
So unfortunately, the law doesn't really see that distinction in the same way that the community does. Oftentimes in hacking, the law just looks at what level of access you have to a particular system, and have you exceeded that access. So that's really covered under what's called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is a federal criminal and civil statute that creates liability for people who essentially hack, for lack of a better word. But again, the CFAA, or the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, doesn't distinguish between whether you're a white hat or a black hat. It looks to see whether you act knowingly, whether you're acting intentionally to gain something, and there are some there's some recognition. If you hack into a computer system, for example, and you cause a ton of damage, or you try to steal a certain amount of money's worth of stuff, that would be, I would say, black hat sort of thing to do, and you're going to get increased punishment. But just the simple act of just accessing a system in and of itself can get you in trouble, even if your intention is to just check the system and see, hey, is it secure, is it insecure? Mm-hmm. The same thing goes with, for example, the Wiretap Act. So generally speaking, under the Wiretap Act, you're not supposed to be able to listen in on communications that people are having where they've manifested an expectation of privacy. And again, it doesn't really matter if you're listening in because you want to get some sort of sensitive data from another person and sell it somewhere, or if you're just listening in to see if your system is secure. The law doesn't distinguish between that. So because the law doesn't distinguish between that, it's important that people are aware of what they're doing, including people who've got a white hat on, so that they are not inadvertently breaking the law, because even though their heart may be in the right place, the law may not necessarily give them the same type of legal protection they may think that they're getting.
Right, and they could get in trouble just doing their job.
Absolutely, and doing a public service, really.
Right.
Many researchers, they don't have a nefarious purpose. They're trying to make systems secure, protect data, and all of that really benefits society, but the law, unfortunately, again, doesn't recognize it as strongly as we'd like to see it.
Right. It's nice that you're able to give legal consultation to people like this and protect them when they are doing a good thing, and we like to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
Secure Ninja shorts are brought to you by SecureNinja.com, a world leader in information security and IT training and certification. Our master instructors will help build you into a highly skilled and marketable security professional. SecureNinja.com, forging IT security experts.